the alternative approach is to address the question of who Joanne is and who I am is. And I can pay real close attention to looking for when I'm in judgment, or I can wonder who's paying real close attention. Okay? And either one, well, the paying real close attention to being in judgment keeps you constantly aware of the spiritual truth and tends to lead you towards big I from little I. The approach of questioning who it is that's even paying attention to this, the question of asking, which is to say self-inquiry, the approach of whenever the I thought comes up, questioning that, it is the generic solution. If you get rid of I, then there's no concepts and there's no judgment. There's no one to judge. None of that happens. But again, it's whatever's working for you. Having said that there's no longer any need for me to go to any other master, I have to tell you that I was reading this Agadata Maharaj the other day, just because I found myself in it. And one of the things he says a lot is that, earnestness and good intention is all that matters. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're coming from earnestness and good intentions and coming from the highest level of understanding and attainment that you have, it's got to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen as quickly as it can. That's it. Earnestness and good intention. Let me turn this light on. I want to see faces a little better. So, it's not necessary to spend time trying to find the ideal spiritual practice as much as to be spiritually practicing at your current today highest understanding of what that means.
I find the process exhausting. I feel like I'm like the guy in Beautiful Mind when he finally figured out he's schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my head, you're not real, you're not real. I mean, I can tell one technique I use is tell myself I'm not present. So my head's going on either one way or the other.
Right.
But the last month has just been exhausting. Because it's not, before my noise was one layer, now it's like a layer behind layer behind layer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, thanks to your script class.
Robert would say, ask who sees all these layers.
The eye does, obviously, so I'm still in.
Where does the eye come from? Who is this eye? Interrogate that. Who sees all these layers? Well, what's the source of this eye? And then follow the eye thought. Recognize that I is a thought. And that all this other stuff is attached to that thought. The concepts, the judgments, the
analysis,
the sainthood, the layers of stuff, the kid, the script, who has a script, who does resistance behaviors, who has kids, you can always go directly to the eye and say, who is this coming to? You have a thought. Who does this thought come to? You can always go right there and interrogate that. And then ask, and the answer, of course, is it comes to me. I think it. And then, well, who is this I? And don't answer the question. Just ask, who is this I? It's like waiting for somebody to raise their hand,
right.
And nobody ever does.
Right.
You want to quiet up your mind and say, ask yourself, who said that? Or they just shut up quicker than hell, like they don't want to get caught, you know. So if you really want to quiet your mind in the moment, just ask, who's saying that? Nope. You know, the guys up there get quiet. They don't want to be identified. Actually, the reality is there's nobody to raise their hand. You know, you have to sustain it through inattention. If you're watching...
Because I'm in a process of attention, obviously, when I'm in that state.
Yeah, but attention to something else, not attention to the eye.
The consequence, yeah.
While you're
the noise, yeah, right.
Yeah, while you're what I call a state of inattention, which means unawareness of who you are. I consider everything else to be distraction. Okay, sorry. When you're in a state of inattention to who you are, then you're distracted, and then you can go anywhere. If you're paying attention, nobody will talk.
And asking who is this I starts the process of...
Yeah, what happens is you say, well, who is this I? Who is this I who's thinking? And there'll be this silence. And in a short time, another thought will come, and you say, who's this thought coming to? And what happens is that the pauses between the questions will get further and further apart for as long as you want to play the game.
Right.
You know, and it's just
if it works.
It's just another spiritual practice.
Right.
I find it's a very useful thing to do while you're driving. Great time to do it. You're sitting there in the car, you know, there's no reason to listen to the radio or get angry if it's driving next to you. Just play self-inquiry, play who am I? And what happens is after you've done that for a while, just the thought who, my experience was that having done that for a while, the minute I would say who or to whom, you know, to start, I'd get dropped into the silence just like that. So I could just say who and I'd be in the silence, and that's a gift right there. That's a real short circuit. Any hint of anxiety or anything, question who, and to be dropped into the silence. So that's where it led me.
Yeah, that's a big security.
But not the first week.
Are you patient with this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, give it a shot. See how it goes.
Yeah, play with it. Play with all these things. You know, I don't know which one will work for you, and that which is at the center of you does.
Right.
And so play with them and see which one feels right, and do it for as long as it feels right. And when you get bored with it, move on to something else.
Come back to the new game.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting here right now, it's so obvious that there's like nothing that needs to be thinking, nothing you need to be thinking about. Yet, as the days progress, these compelling thoughts come in that try to tell me how important it is that I think about them.
Called human consciousness. You're in link with human consciousness, and human consciousness' sole purpose in life is to tell you how miserable everything's going to come out.
Or how great.
Great leads to miserable.
Right.
You're in the human consciousness, you know, and you've got to stop. There comes a point where you know, the chatter goes on, but what matters is whether you're listening to it or not. You know, I mean, if I'm in a room and there's a bunch of people chattering, it doesn't bother me at all. And if one is inside my head, it makes no difference. You know, same situation. I'm in a room with a bunch of people chattering, you know, and who cares what's going on as long as I don't. If this was an AA meeting, okay, and we're sharing around the room, and Tree shares, and we all listen to Tree share, and we all consider the source, and some of us take what we can use, and some of us don't listen to any of it, you know, but we all sort of consider the source and take what we can use and leave the rest, you know, and it goes on around the room. But for most of us, when my head shares, I think it's gospel. I think it's God Himself, you know, I mean, this is truth, you know, and I've got to really listen. I mean, this is the share, and I don't understand why you all aren't, you know, immediately buying it, you know, and this is gospel. It is what we think about when our head shares. And if instead when your head talked, you listened to it and considered what was good and what was useful, and when it was all over, you said, thank you for sharing, next. And like that, you would not get sucked into all this stuff, and you could just drop all, if you could give your thoughts as little energy as you give everybody else's thoughts that's babbling around you, you would be well on your way getting silent. And you can be in the silence while thoughts are happening, as long as you're aware that they're not yours. The thoughts are not you. Thoughts are chatter in the universe, just like flowers or butterflies, fox, birds, or cats, or people.
I know that every time, I've known this every time I come to these Tuesday nights, it's going to be an hour and a half of bullshit. Okay, and I know that. And so, and I talk a lot, and I know that. That's where most of the bullshit comes from. But anyhow. But, when you do this work for a while, you realize that everyone in here is just talking smack, and then we all leave. But,
if you truly believed that, you wouldn't be here.
right, that's my point. That's my whole point. Is because
Just being shot.
no, it's the truth is in the silence. It's not in words. So, and throughout meditation I do, while you had a context going a few minutes ago. That's where all of that dialogue's taking place, is during my meditation. So even though I'm sitting silently for an hour, I still have this big, huge dialogue going on that's my problem. And then because Anna was saying something about Robert saying you can't go anywhere. Like, I like going to India in my meditation, and I'm sitting with all the other guys wearing the turbans, and I'm like, oh, I'm in India facing the east, and there's a whatever, because that's where I really want to go, which is a fantasy, which is a lie, which is bullshit, which is blocking me. And so then you're saying, to whom does this thought come? Which is no one, and then all that disappears, and then I can be in the true silence. Well, boy, it is just like a continuous dialogue. And then it gets quiet, but then the dialogue comes back. And I've been repeating myself basically for that whole hour. But you were saying that the intervals, between that, get more distant and more distant, and the blue collar part of it. But then anybody can awaken right now and just be in that. And so it makes me sad that it's not me.
So, it is you. You are awake from that viewpoint. And wake up. Drop all your attachments. Clear off those 4 lists.
Yeah, I'm going to do that tonight.
Don't make the list. Clear them off. Stop loving all the loves and hating all the hates and fearing all the fears and desiring all the desires. And then the dialogue will get a whole lot quieter, because it is the peace comes when none of it matters. If anything matters, then to that extent, you're not peaceful. Janis Joplin was exactly right. Peace is just another word for nothing else to lose. Freedom is just another word for nothing else to lose. If you don't care about anything out there, then...
Come on, say it how you really mean it, not giving a shit.
That's what it feels like. If you really don't care, if you really don't give a shit, then you're free.
Right.
But you can't try not, from my experience, I can't try not to
Right.
But you can look at it intelligently. and see what the true price and the true payout for it is, and you'll discover that, that nothing on your desire list has any potential for bringing you happiness.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just...
Okay, that's the way you empty your desire list. And if through study of your truth you find out who you really are, then you'll understand that nobody on your fear list can hurt you. Okay? But no, you can't just choose to ignore them. Then sublimation doesn't work, suppression doesn't work. But through conscious inquiry, you can discover the falseness of everything on all four of those lists.
I know it's false. It's just like when I was single. Anytime you try to walk in the bar and not look for a girl just by the thought of not looking, you're looking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, kind of what Sean said. It's like a few weeks ago we were in here and there was like just these neat silences.
Mm-hmm.
And they had nothing to do with my intention or my thought. It wasn't like, I'm going to just try to be silent and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the first time I realized how trying to be spiritual, trying to do these things. The more I try, it almost reinforces them to keep happening over and over.
Not almost. It does. Yeah.
That's why I get the same kind of sadness that he's talking about. Like those silences that's what I've been searching for.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no switch I can just kind of throw and go. Let's just. It happened with nothing.
That's right.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with it. It just kind of. It's happening.
But there are things we can do which make it more likely to happen. And that's what we've been talking about mostly this evening. And as long as you're in great fear or great angst or greatly interested in something, anything, or greatly afraid of anything, or greatly wanting anything, or greatly loving anything, you're not going to get into the silence because you're off being interested or loving or hating or desiring or whatever. So those things, those are the lists of the things that prevent you. When you think of them.
Which is another way of saying if you've got kids, if your kids run in your life, because those are all kid things, right?
Sure. Well, kid is human.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're human things.
And you can't mentally make your kid grow up.
No, but you can look at all those things and see the ludicrousness of the fantasy that they'll help you. Mm-hmm. How many times have I told you and everybody else I walk with, that who you marry, what job you take, what house you buy, what pet you adopt, what career you embark on, all these critical decisions that we spend so much time worrying about and concerning ourselves with, the choice you make on any of those will have absolutely no effect on how you feel about yourself 5 years from now. Doesn't matter. If you take this career or no career or get married or don't get married or get divorced or don't get divorced or live here or live in Arkansas or live in Ethiopia, it will have no effect on how you feel about yourself 5 years ago or 5 years from now when you make a choice on these things. It doesn't relate to how you feel about yourself. See? And if you really get that, then those lists get emptied pretty quickly. Because most of the things on our list are way less than career or house or spouse. If you can see that that's true, and you can by looking at it, by analyzing it, taking some examples and discovering that no, it makes no difference. Well, look at the decisions you made 5 years ago and see how they've affected how you feel about yourself. And then think about what would have happened if you'd taken the other choice. You would have felt just as miserable or just as joyful in a different set of circumstances. So none of those things will have any effect on how you feel about yourself 5 years from now. But whether or not you meditated this morning will. Wow. That sort of makes a point, doesn't it? And here's the silence.
You gotta
bird.
Is it really a hummingbird or a moth?
It's a moth.
Here's the silence.
God, it's not. Should we make a list or not? Make a list so that we can analyze it and get rid of it?
If you want to.
That's all the game.
Don't make a list and don't. I have to make a list so that I know it doesn't exist.
Won't hurt you to make the list and look at it. You know, I mean, the point is that that's the list of things that are tying you to your humanhood.
Right.
He's not very ferocious. I found a live mouse in my shoe in the dining room one morning. He brought it in and hadn't killed it, and it got into the boot where he couldn't find it. You know? I must admit I was more surprised than pleased. He was rather proud. He's not a killer. He's a very soft mouth for a cat.
He wasn't a pet.
Yeah.
I have a question about the line, the teachings in the silence. When I'm in the silence, I feel very good. I feel peaceful. I'm just wondering, but I still like classes and talking and questions and answers, and I wonder if, because I'm so used to relating to my experience through my mind, if when you say the teachings in the silence, there's nothing mental going on there. But to some degree, I have a hard time relating myself to it, the self that I'm used to
But that's not
identifying with.
But that's not the one we're educating.
Okay. So even the desire, I have a desire for the silence, or I'm peaceful when I'm in the silence. I enjoy being there. I'm motivated to be there, and I'm also feel a desire for questions and answers and talks and classes and that type of thing. Isn't that an example of living between two worlds?
Yes, it is. Sure.
Okay.
It sure is. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. You know, we are conditioned to, especially through college and things like that, we are conditioned to hearing truth and wanting to be able to pass tests and all that sort of stuff and getting A's and pats on the butt for doing that. And we are thoroughly conditioned to doing that. Nonetheless, somebody can talk to you about the experience of the presence of God from now until the end of the universe and convey nothing to you, whereas if you had spent 5 minutes actually in the presence of God, you would be having an experience, and the 5 minutes spent there will tend to deepen the experience. Okay? So you're being taught about the only truth that there is. And similarly, in classes, when you're in a consciousness that has experienced some truth that you haven't experienced, just being in that consciousness will tend to bring you towards the experience of that truth. I used to, when I was in India, Rashneesh talked in English one month, and the next month he talked in Hindi. And it was wonderful because when he talked in English, 5,000 people were there, and when he talked in Hindi, 300 were there. So I went to all the Hindi lectures. There were two great advantages. One, it was very small and intimate, so I could get it real close. And two, I didn't understand the word he was saying, so I could just be in the consciousness, And it was real clear to me that I got a lot more out of the Hindi talks than I did out of the English talks, because the words he was saying, my 99th percentile A student mind was saying, I got to remember that so I can tell people, I was taking notes and trying to remember stuff so I could spit it out later and tell everybody, all this wonderful truth. And it was very busy trying to latch on to the wonderful things he was saying. And when he was speaking Hindi, the tone sequence of sentences in Hindi is different than the tone sequences of sentences in English. In English, we know when the period's going to come by the way the voice raises and lowers. It lowers. In India, it doesn't stop. We just say, "Hey, sorry." Yeah, so my mind didn't even know when the sentence would end, so I kept falling off the sentences into the silence was my experience, you know. It was just wonderful. I was just really sad when he spoke in English. And he was speaking wonderful truth, you know, talking about, you know, Buddhist truths and Sufi truth and Zen master truths, you know, he was telling great truths, but it was real clear that I was getting much more in the Hindi lectures where I wasn't confused by understanding what he was saying. So it's in that sense that the teaching is in the silence. When you hear Robert's CDs, notice his delivery, how he starts a sentence and then comes up with the second phrase and then thinks maybe that wasn't what he was going to say. It was more like this over here. And what he's doing is throwing in these silences all along, you know, at different places so that you'll be in the silence with him. He really, you know, he's the kind of he's been doing it for 50 years, and his talking is part of the silence now, you know. He's just putting frames around chunks of silence between the phrases and the words. See, I feel the silence right now. Are you hearing it? It's very deep here right now. Until you say, is that it? Yes, it was.
You know, I'm still fairly new to all this stuff, and there's times when I've been feeling like maybe I'm going to repeat what some of you guys are saying, but, you know, I could feel progress or feel a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like Sunday, I had this script event all on my own. I mean, I did it to myself. Wasn't even, you know, was involved. And I got to a point where I was crying where my eyes were puffy for like a day. And I just get this sense like, okay, I'm not getting anywhere with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels so discouraging that, like, I hear you saying things about drop all desires and all concerns, and I'm thinking, oh, God, it seems impossible. But I don't know what my question is or point is, but it just feels like, I guess I have a sense of overwhelming, like I'm never going to get it.
Yeah, everybody does. And, you know, part of it, that's part of the deal is that, you know, one of the hardest things to do is to measure your own spiritual progress. You know, because you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going, which really makes it hard to set up the milestones, you know.
Like when Robert said, it's when you realize there's nothing to realize.
But yeah, there are often long periods of time where you don't feel like you're making progress, but yet your life is different than when you started to work. And if you look at your life and realize that your life is a reflection of the content of your consciousness, then as your life changes, you know that your content is changing. So you can see it that way. The trouble is when we have one bad script event, it seems like it owns us, and we're just as miserable as we ever were, and we lose sight of the fact that we used to always be in script and not even know it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, actually, that's a good point. Thank you.
Weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a bad one. It was just like, I felt like I had taken, you know.
Your life was that bad. Your life was that bad. Your life was that bad. We were all always in script.
The progress is here too. Here you are laughing about it. Instead of absorbing 3 months of your life.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me for a second.
That's true. Because in the past it would have been.
Sure.
I find myself doing things, you know, even though it doesn't feel right. Like I know that, okay, I need to meditate to do it anyway. Or I need to know that I had a script event like a week ago and a different one. And I knew I needed to take responsibility for it. It was like just gritted teeth of writing an apology. And the second I did, it all went away. You know, the drama left and everything. So it's like I know it works, but when I go through one of those where I'm just like sobbing like I'm an infant because I feel like the world is coming to an end. And I haven't felt that in a couple of months, you know what I mean? I have the little events, but I can get past it, but that one, I mean, the one I had Sunday night, it's like, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm, you know, going backwards.
Usually those kind of emotional releases there's 7 events tied into that. That you never quite process, and they all get triggered all in a row, and you cry for 24 hours, or whatever it is, you know? But the good news is you know, just how little kids do. They only cry for 30 seconds, and they're off in benefits. And it's terrific.
See, my thing is, I've cried 4 times in 7 years.
Wow.
It could be because I'm a guy. Women cry more than men. Women cry more than men, that's just how it is. So I go and get these teddy bears and a baseball bat, and then it's like the most retarded thing I'm about to do.
Beat the potato?
Yeah, with the baseball bat. So I go, okay, now I'm going to get really angry, and then I can't even get really angry because it's like, it's just like, well, no, because I realize how it's not suppressed anger, it's that it doesn't mean anything immediately, and it removed it all. I think I hit the teddy bear maybe 10 times. Put Billy's face on.
See, when I come here on Tuesday nights, I feel a strong silence. But when I come here on Friday or Sunday, it's not like that.
No, not nearly as
And
focused.
how can we move it? Let's bring it to Friday night and Sunday night.
Kind of like invitations.
What's happening?
What's happening? It certainly is more focused here, but we're more focused here. And people come in Sunday night and you know, here if people came in Sunday night and were aggressively trying to get into the silence, or expected to be in the silence, or like that, it would happen much more. The fact is we're much more focused here. When we meditate at the start, we only meditate for 10 minutes, and we only meditate until we get into the silence, and then we start to see. And while we're talking, we're all really uplifted, probably because of the talking, so that when there's gaps, there's the silence, you know.
That initial meditation brings us there, and then we're kept there.
Yeah.
But there's no initial meditation.
Because it's all initial meditation, right?
Yeah. There's no focus.
It's not as focused, right? Here we expect to meditate for 10 minutes, and there we expect to meditate for an hour, so it's like we're pacing ourselves.
Yeah. So isn't it maybe higher because there is more truth in consciousness here because we're talking about truth, so our consciousness are higher?
Yeah, you know, I mean, clearly more people are experiencing a deeper silence here than they do at the meditation. So clearly there is more silence. There's more silence available to reach. That indicates that more people are individually reaching the silence, because what we're experiencing is the group consciousness, you know.
But there's no talking going on Friday or Sunday.
There's no expectation of, there's no expectation of noise when you go Friday and Sunday.
But could it be you're hitting those silences, but you're in a longer silence, and here it's kind of the chaos, and then the silence, and then the chaos, and the silence, and there's like silence, and then boom,
Like a
and then
contrast.
silent, and then boom, because that's what I get on this.
Yeah, so I agree.
I just want more of it.
Yeah,
Everyone be quiet.
I felt it here, and I don't feel it anywhere else.
It's here.
and
It's
Yes.
here. It's here right now. Now, do you feel it right now while I'm talking?
I need
Notice that
something to be quiet, and then I feel it.
Notice that it's behind my talking right now. It's right here. It's just as silent to me right now with this battle going on as without it. Now, can you hear that too?
Sometimes.
No, I mean right now, not sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so there it is. See? Has nothing to do with sound. Silence is lack of eye, not lack of sound. So I would say that we'd have to conclude that you were less focused on Friday nights and Sunday nights.
It's your fault.
Are you feeling it on Friday and Sunday?
I can feel the silence anytime I choose.
Okay.
And it's always just as deep, moment to moment. Here, because we're not there all the time, here sometimes it grabs me. Sometimes there's a real feeling of it grabbing me, rather than me having to reach for it. But there's that sounds pretty weird to say it, but there's a lot more going on here than the 12 or 13 of us sitting here. Okay, and one of the things that happens here is we get put into silence. And on Sunday nights, I have to reach for the silence.
Okay.
And here we sometimes we get put into it.
What do you mean by that, put into?
I don't know what I mean by that. That's my experience. All of a sudden,
It's just so strong.
all of a sudden, without me reaching for it, here it is, and I shut up. I think it may be God's way of telling me to shut up.
Well, I feel like when it happened, whatever, a few weeks ago, it's like I forgot to talk. It was like a hindsight. Like, oh, my God, I didn't make any noise for it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like an attempt to not talk.
Right, it's not.
Right.
Silence is lack of self. There's nobody who can talk. Here it is.
You're feeling it on Friday and Sunday, and you're feeling it tonight. But for some reason tonight, you're able to bring it to us so we can feel it.
Maybe not me.
Something's not bringing it to us on Friday and Sunday.
Do you ever do meditations anywhere else but this room?
Yeah.
Don't you feel it then?
Not like here. Right. Me too.
The difference is
Sometimes.
what you said, whether it sucks you in or you have the ability to go there.
Well, this is what it is, man.
The other thing is, we've been meditating here for 8 years, and there's a different vibration. There's a silence in this room. You walk into this room with nobody here but you, and you'll find it more easily than you will in the room where your kids play.
I relate to what Tree says because I feel the same way, and I know that I can be here on a Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and my head can run a whole lot easier. It's almost like it can't do it here on Tuesday night to the same degree. Sometimes it's quiet, it's silent, and I feel like I feel an effort to start, but it's not. It's like it doesn't have any energy. So
And that may be because we talk.
I think it's because we pay $10. Because
That helps.
It does.
That helps. It makes a big difference.
Right.
Valuing the meeting
Right.
makes a big difference in your experience. If you don't value the meeting, then it's worth what you put into it. If you don't value the meeting, then it has no value to you. Your being says, "Oh, this is free. There's nothing here," and it says, "Oh, this is $10. We better get something out of this," or whatever it says. But putting a value on something changes the whole complexion.
And that's a principle that goes way back, to Melchizedek. But one thing with the Old Testament, that's not good. But with what we were talking about this last night, and I was listening to Joel, and Joel says that the edifice, that the consciousness of the edifice is only as high as the teacher. And I was talking to you about this last night, is I do a lot of meditation at my house, but then when I come here on the Sunday, Wednesday, Fridays, I feel more lifted. And we were talking about this last night, and I was saying, well, which was the solution? Someone even said it in the meeting this morning. It's exactly what I was saying and what we're saying now. And And so it's just a higher look, and this gets back to the hierarchy, which doesn't exist, but that I think that there's a hierarchy. So I'm lifted, and I don't know, I'm getting into like a mushy kind of state of context here. I don't know where I'm going, but with the silences thundering on Tuesday compared to the other place, we can feel that at any time. But what's blocking it is our own self.
That's right.
So bring your notes from Tuesday, read them during the meditation, throw $10 in the basket. But
But if there are more people here who are experiencing the silence, you will get more into it.
Yes.
Rashneesh was also right that if there are enough people who can experience the silence, then when you get into the silence, it will grow.
Right.
And if there are not enough people who can experience the silence, then when you get into the silence, it will dissipate. This crowd seems to...
But I like what Joel says too. He says, every time you meditate, realize that you're one with all who are meditating, everywhere. And joining in that consciousness,
I've tried
you're
that.
lifted.
I would call on the consciousness of this room to my house, and then I'd find myself sitting over here.
Yeah, but your house has a calmness to it. I mean, I was spinning left and right yesterday before, and I went over. That's why I went to your house to see if you're right or not. You said you're right. You said your room was peaceful. It's good to see. And when I left that hour later, I wasn't freaking out anymore.
There's been a lot of good consciousness in this room, so it's here. But it also is different based on the intent of the people who are actually in the room at the moment.
So walk on Friday.
So we brought it.
I do know that I feel, when I go to the meditation on Sunday night, I feel different Monday morning than when I don't go to meditation on Sunday night. I wake up Monday morning and it's different than if I haven't gone.
Sure.
So I'm
You get
getting something.
You get lifted.
Even if I don't feel anything that
You
night.
feel different when you walk with me. You feel different after the walk than you did before. That's why people walk with me. We don't say anything worth hearing. Yeah, people walk with me because they feel better after the walk. Yeah, that's why we do it. Because we get lifted. That's why I hung out with Robert every moment I could, because I got lifted. I got high. Yeah, we're just junkies.
Well, I often get here to walk with you, and on the way over, I have certain things that I know I want to, that seem important. And then we're walking, and I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Me too.
And they're gone, and I'm going home, I'm feeling good, and I know what the hell I thought was important.
Yeah, we get lifted. That's the whole point. That's what's going on here. Is that, yeah, I mean, nobody around here deals with the problem at the level of the problem. We go to where there's no problem. And that's why I hung with Robert. You gotta sit with Robert. Ludicrous. Very high experience. The first year that I was with Robert, I would go out to Hollywood, and when I came back, my skin was buzzing. It felt like I'm riding bare-armed on a motorcycle. You know how the air makes you ladies may not know it, but for the guys, the air on your arms, on the hair on your arms buzzes. Being with Robert, I'd walk away from Robert, and for the 40 minutes of the drive home, my skin was buzzing from being in his presence, okay? That went on for at least a year. So, we get lifted. That's what we're doing. Getting high. That's what I'm doing. I don't know what you guys. That's what I'm doing. And more is better. Let's get quiet. Thanks for coming. I love you all.